Hello and welcome. My name is Zafar Iqbal, and you're watching the Mojo Story. Over the last couple of weeks, we've been seeing dramatic political developments in Pakistan that led to the formation of a new government there. Shehbaz Sharif is now the Prime Minister of Pakistan. Imran Khan's government has been removed in a vote of no confidence motion that saw a lot of drama in the Pakistani parliament. Now, Shehbaz Sharif is the prime minister and he's heading a coalition. In that coalition, there are other prominent parties of Pakistan, including the Pakistani People's Party, led by Zardari and Bilawal Bhutto. But today we are mainly focusing on the relation between the two countries, India and Pakistan. How is it going to impact, or whether there will be any impact at all? We're joined by a prominent panel from Pakistan as well as from India, starting with you, Suhasini, if I may. You have been covering India-Pakistan relations for all these years. What's the sense that you get? We saw a tweet by Prime Minister Narendra Modi congratulating Shehbaz Sharif, but also saying that India wants a region free of terror. And in response to that tweet, Shehbaz Sharif again breaking up the Kashmir issue.
Definitely, and I think after the tweet, there's also been a letter, as was reported, Prime Minister Modi sending greetings, which are customary to the new Pakistan Prime Minister. So I think what we're seeing is that both sides are keeping the pleasantries, the diplomatic norms going. In fact, Prime Minister Modi was amongst the first leaders around the world, I think after maybe Turkey and China, to congratulate Mr. Shehbaz Sharif. And I think the response from Mr. Shehbaz Sharif may have been disappointing to some because, straight away he went into the Kashmir issue. But I think what we're seeing is a reality check on both sides. Prime Minister Modi in his tweet and his letters made it very clear that terror remains the sticking point between both sides, that India expects Pakistan to do more to crack down on terror groups attacking India from Pakistani soil. And Mr. Shehbaz Sharif said we cannot have peace without a resolution of the Kashmir issue. So what we're seeing over here is both of them making it clear that they're not moving from their positions. Don't expect a breakthrough immediately. These are two now seasoned leaders when it comes to the India-Pakistan dialogue process. Mr. Modi did try and dabble his hands in them in the process for a couple of years. And they are now dealing with the reality that they have to have the basic norms between the two countries, but not much more.
Yes, obviously, at this point in time, there's hardly any relationship between the two countries, not talking to each other. But do you think it's just symbolic, or there could be perhaps an icebreaker somewhere around the corner? But it seemed difficult given the fact that the situation in Pakistan and Shehbaz Sharif's compulsion there.
Well, do I see an icebreaker around the corner? No, but there's always an icebreaker around the corner between India and Pakistan because it can come on many issues. We know for a fact that there is a track to or a back channel diplomacy going on between the strategic side, the NSA on our side, and the military in Pakistan. That has been on and off for the last 5 years, actually. It has been going since perhaps before the Pathankot attacks even brought an end to the actual talks between the two sides. And they ensure that perhaps situation doesn't escalate as it could have after the BrahMos missile misfire. I think they ensure that there are new ways of at least making some accommodation for each other, whether it is on trade, whether it is on the transit of wheat to Afghanistan. But there is no appetite, I think, on either side right now in the establishments for a big breakthrough.
Yes. Well, we'd also like to hear from our Pakistani guest, Maid Ali, joins us from Pakistan. Maid sir, what's the sense that you get now that there's a new government in Pakistan? Do you think some sort of small steps being taken towards improving relations with India?
Are you asking me?
Yes, please.
I've got an audio problem here, but I'll try to answer your question, whatever I could comprehend from your question. I think India at the moment it doesn't figure in the turmoil that we have in Pakistan at the moment. The political turmoil I'm talking about. The government is fresh. It has huge tasks on its hands. India is important. There's no doubt about it, but it is not on the top of the agenda of the government at present. It will the government will sink in after some time, and once it is there, once it has addressed the economic problem and the growing sort of instability, political instability with Imran Khan in the streets, and and other problems. Of course, there are multiple problems that Pakistan is facing. So India will come on the agenda, but not at the moment. I think Pakistan has a host of more important issues to tackle with.
But is there a fundamental difference between the approach of Shehbaz Sharif and Imran Khan as far as you know uh, improving relations between the two countries is concerned, or it does not matter who is at the top there? Things will remain as they are.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you. Can you repeat the question, please?
Yeah, I'm saying, could there be some sort of a difference, a fundamental difference between Shehbaz Sharif and Imran Khan, as well as looking at Indo-Pak relations concerned?
If you're asking me something about fundamental change, if
Yeah.
that's the point you're trying to elaborate on,
Yes.
no, i
Yes.
don't think i don't think there'll be any fundamental change in the approach that Pakistan would have towards India, because our foreign policy towards India, uh, as a neighbor, which has not been very friendly to Pakistan, and vice versa, of course. uh, I think uh, we form the Indian policy with the consent and with the I would say, with consultation with the armed forces. And I think it's not figuring, I think, top on the top of our agenda at the moment. But Shehbaz Sharif's party, the PML-N, which is now, which we can't say that it's a PML-N government. It's a united opposition
Good.
government.
Yeah.
So he's not in a position to sort of make a comprehensive, concrete Indian policy at the moment. Neither does he seem to be in a hurry for doing so. But as far as the PMLN is concerned, and as far as the Sharifs are concerned, they have a very soft corner for India, and it was proven in 1997, I think, and then later on, and they've been sort of blamed for it by Imran Khan and by successive governments for that.
Major General Ashok Kumar, we've been seeing ceasefire holding on the line of control for more than a year now. It's been very quiet at the line of control. There is no firing, no exchange of shelling and all that. But internally, we're seeing violence in Kashmir, targeting of civilians, and encounters taking place. What's the sense you make as far as the situation on the borders is concerned and the internal situation in J&K? After this change of government in Pakistan, do you think there we could see some sort of a change in dynamics at the borders and in the hinterland?
I, for one, always believe in seeing the glass half full rather than being pessimistic and following the precedences. If you really see, Pakistan has its serious challenges on its western borders. Its attempt to bring Taliban in Afghanistan is not giving it the intended benefits. And if you critically analyze this sudden agreement between Pakistan and India a year back on the line of control not to fire on each other was a dramatic event. Of course, it was brought about by track to diplomacy, but Pakistani army played a very, very big and positive role. And there have been multiple public overtures from Pakistani establishment, especially the military, that they are keen for normal, good, healthy relationship. Since it has already been said by the speaker from across the country from Pakistan that the policies towards India are controlled by the Pakistan military, and it is a right belief to a large extent. And since military is at least showing those overtures towards the positive relationship towards India, I for one see a positive line towards that, because once the current economic and unemployment crisis of Pakistan, debt trapping by China, reaches a level what we are seeing in Sri Lanka, the Pakistani establishment, especially the military, will be something to be it's the establishment which has to take it out, which will not be possible. And therefore, I think Pakistan military has learned its lessons, and the way it has conducted itself in the current imbroglio between Imran Khan and the opposition-led alliance, I think there are positive indicators, and we should catch that thread. While the statement by the Prime Minister Sharif as well as Prime Minister of India have come with little caveat, the other saying about Kashmir, the other saying about the terror, and rightly so from both perspectives. But both have talked about the good of the people, the suffering of the people. So therefore, this thread has to be built up. And I think India, being a larger brother or the elder brother, should take a forthcoming stance to move on this issue positively, rather than letting it sink and wait for too much of positive responses from Pakistan, which has held itself hostess to its Kashmir view for a very very long time.
Major General Ashok Kumar saying, let me go over to Manju Seth. There is a context to what's happened in Pakistan. That letter that Imran Khan famously waved in that huge public gathering, and he said that there is, of course, international conspiracy to topple his government. He named America, named the official, and that really put Pakistan in a difficult situation as far as its internal relations are concerned with other countries, particularly America. And now we're seeing in the recent 2+2 dialogue between India and America, again, the issue of terrorism in Pakistan coming up. How do you see the situation on the diplomatic level? Will there be some sort of a pressure on Pakistan to move forward and to resolve the issues with India?
As we have been seeing, and as other previous speakers have said, including Mr. Maid and Suhasini and Ms. Suhasini and Major General Ashok, if you look at all what they've been saying, we can get a little bit of perspective. India is not at the moment figuring on Pakistan's radar. It's not a top priority. And I think for India also at the moment, we are not looking at mending ties. And that's why I think it could be the caveats have been put in place on both sides. But it is important for us to have good relations with Pakistan and to say that and to see that things don't deteriorate. And for that, as you said, back channel talks have been taking place, and we hope that those will continue, or we expect them to continue. And I feel that in the coming days, we might be able to improve our ties further. And as far as pressure is concerned, I'm not sure that, whose pressure. Because at the back, as mentioned by previous speakers, it is the army which will determine whether the ties improve or not. I'm not sure any other foreign country at the moment would be putting pressure, except I feel it could be China. And the background putting some pressure for whatever reason, either to not mend ties or to mend ties, depending on its interest. And of course, if you look at the US, looking at what has happened in Afghanistan and its experience with Pakistan, there seems to be some hesitation even in the US to really continue working with. Going on to work with Pakistan again. But as both the countries, India and US, mentioned in the 2+2 talks, they will both work together to ensure that Pakistan does not use its territory to harbor terrorists or to encourage terrorism.
Right. In fact, DGISPR gave a press conference just a short while ago, about half an hour ago. And in that press conference, he made a couple of important things. Firstly, about the letter, about the conspiracy. He said there's no word conspiracy. So that's an important point that he has raised. Imran Khan has all along been saying that there was a foreign conspiracy. And second, he said that the Pakistani army chief will not take an extension even if it's given to him. Neither is he seeking an extension, nor will he accept an extension if that's given to him. So clearly, army has also been on the back foot after what happened in Pakistan. There are Twitter trends running. How much of that will impact on the situation on the ground, and would there be any implications on Indo-Pak relationship? Well, that's what we would want to ask and we want to discuss here. Sarral Sharma, what's the sense that you make? If you can unmute, Sarral.
Sorry. So yeah, I think there is cautious optimism in India. Of course, those are positive tweets by both the leaders. However, 2-3 things will impact the way forward as far as India-Pakistan relations are concerned under the new government. Number one is the domestic situation in Pakistan, as the previous panelists also mentioned. Number one is rising prices, unemployment, and mounting foreign debt. Second is also how Shehbaz Sharif is going to keep the coalition intact, because coalition parties will there have own say on Indo-Pakistan relationship forward. So how he is going to handle that. My third point is the military establishment's take on Indo-Pakistan relationship. Of course, there is a back channel talk going on between the two sides, but we have General Bajwa's extension due in November. So whether he'll change or not change. So
No, he's already said that. That's what I'm saying. The DG ISPR gave a press conference a short while ago. He said neither he's seeking an extension and nor he'll accept an extension. If it's given to him, he will refuse to take it. Well, so army has made that much clear. But the point that I'm trying to ask Suhasini, more than a year ago, I think in that Islamabad dialogue, Bajwa famously said, let's bury the past. And then there was some talks about resumption of trade between India and Pakistan. But then Pakistan took one step forward and two steps back, perhaps due to the pressure. So there is a sort of an internal pressure, internal dynamics, even if the army may want to see things going towards some sort of a not a resolution, but some sort of a peace at the borders and in the hinterland. There is an internal pressure. Shehbaz Sharif raked up the issue of Kashmir in the Pakistani parliament. In fact, if we before you say something on this, let's play out that bite. What exactly Shehbaz Sharif said on Kashmir in the parliament.
मैं ये कहना चाहता हूं कि नवाज शरीफ ने भारत से जब अमन का हाथ बढ़ाया था तो वही नवाज शरीफ था जिसने अक़वाम मुत्तहिदा में असेंबली में वहां पर जाकर कश्मीरियों की हक खुद इरादियत, उनकी आज़ादी के लिए एक जोरदार, बहुत शानदार, इंस्पायरिंग तकरीर की थी। और आज जो गासबाना कब्जा किया गया अगस्त 2019 में आर्टिकल 370 को ख़त्म कर दिया गया, तो मासवाए ये श्रीनगर रोड के अलावा और हमने क्या किया? क्या कोई संजीदा काविश की? क्या कोई सीरियस डिप्लोमेसी की? क्या कोई गए बार और कोशिश की कि जनाब कश्मीरियों के साथ क्या हशर हो रहा है? दिन रात कश्मीर की वादियों में कश्मीरी भाइयों और बहनों का खून बह रहा है और कश्मीर की वादी उनके खून से सुर्ख हो गई है। तो जनाब स्पीकर, मैं ये अर्ज करना चाहता हूं कि भारत के साथ हम अच्छे ताल्लुकात के ख्वाह हैं, लेकिन मसला कश्मीर के मुनसिफाना हल तक पायदार अमन कायम नहीं हो सकता। इसलिए मैं समझता हूं और हम कश्मीरी भाइयों और बहनों के लिए हर फोरम पर आवाज उठाएंगे, डिप्लोमेटिक एफर्ट्स करेंगे, उनको डिप्लोमेटिक सपोर्ट देंगे, मॉरल सपोर्ट देंगे। ये हमारा हक है, वो हमारे भाई हैं।
Suhasini.
I certainly think that it is going to be very difficult for any Prime Minister of Pakistan post 2019 to not consistently refer to Jammu Kashmir, simply because that there are no other talks on the issue between India and Pakistan. If you remember, about more than a decade ago, in fact, we had seen less and less references to Jammu Kashmir as more than a bilateral dispute between them. And we had seen a kind of process take place behind the scenes that no longer exists. India and Pakistan are at perhaps, I mean, I shouldn't make comparisons because there have been wars between the two countries, but diplomatically are at their lowest ebb ever. We don't have any political ties. We don't have any trade ties, with a few exceptions made for, I think, pharma goods and for the transit trade to Afghanistan. We have truncated missions in both capitals. And we don't actually have any kind of official process going on in which the two countries, they take part either at multilateral events like the SCO, or they take part in this back channel dialogue, as I said, which is completely under a shroud. We don't actually know what is happening. So given that situation, it's going to be very difficult for any leader in Pakistan to come out and speak without that mention of Jammu and Kashmir. You referred to the kind of steps forward and backward that we saw in 2021 after General Bajwa made that statement about burying the past. In fact, we know that there was definitely some movement on trade, because the Imran Khan government itself, the Prime Minister's office itself, brought about a bill or brought about a resolution to try and reopen trade ties with India to the cabinet. It was defeated in cabinet. This is very unusual, since clearly that the resolution came under Mr. Imran Khan's own, he was the commerce minister at the time, and it came under him, and despite that it was defeated. I understand that it had something to do with these back channel talks that also were supposed to be sort of correlate with movement in Jammu Kashmir, particularly the question of restoring autonomy, restoring statehood to Jammu and Kashmir. And that was also something that many had expected would happen last year. That has not happened now. In fact, we are looking at the delimitation process, which will lead hopefully to state elections, which will possibly lead to a restoration of statehood. After all, statehood is something that the Home Minister himself suggested. So my sense is that this is not going to be an easy one to do. We might, just putting it out there, by the end of this year, see the two leaders, because now we are in a post-COVID situation. You no longer have only, sort of virtual meetings and virtual conferences. You may see both leaders at one of the conferences at the same time. And then, it depends on how much the political leadership on both sides and, of course, the military establishment on both sides would like to go forward.
So, Suhasini, what I was trying to understand is that Pakistan has been breaking up the issue of J&K. But after, 2019 developments, Pakistan has been saying, and unless there is a reversal from the Indian side, August 5, 2019, the steps that are taken are reversed, there can be no talks. So that has clearly hardened the position. It's not just that settlement of Kashmir issue, but it's sort of a reversal of the steps that were taken in 2019. But now that, as you pointed out, we're heading towards some sort of a election, political process, and then probably statehood, is that we will see similar sort of a situation until an election and statehood is restored, and then probably there is some hope that there can be a step forward.
I genuinely think, Zafar, that when the leadership on both sides decide to move forward, all of this can be managed. After all, the same Prime Minister who said nothing short of a full reversal also has spoken of at least show us a roadmap. And that was Prime Minister Khan. He said, show us a roadmap and we can maybe go forward. I'll tell you where you see some of these, discrepancies come through. After all, Pakistan has now made a proposal to India that religious pilgrimages should be made a little easier for the pilgrims on both sides. So allow flights to go instead of having to walk across the border, especially for the places that are further on. Now, the problem with that is that India's response to that has been, yes, we would like to discuss it. We, in fact, would have to renegotiate the 1973 protocol 72 protocol we have on this issue. The problem there is that Pakistan cannot discuss anything because of its stand in the previous government without seeing seeing this movement on Jammu Kashmir. So at what point is it going to become necessary to do the basic things, discuss the reversal of the trade strictures against them, start talking about visas, start talking about pilgrimages, even basic things like this? Are they going to get stuck, or are they going to find a way around it? I think we should not look for broad headlines anymore. I think that is, that has not led in the past to a solution. Nothing has. We've seen so many different things.
Yeah.
But I think what we must look for is the ability to find processes where you are discussing some issues between the two countries, even if you don't have any kind of big political,
Yeah.
a breakthrough.
Maiden, Pakistan's position since 2019 has been that the steps need to be reversed and then there would be talks. Imran Khan particularly has been very clear on that. Do you think that's changing now that the new government is in place, or the same position will continue until the elections are held and statehood is restored in J&K?
I think it has got more to do with the statehood factor. Until that is done, I think no Pakistani politician uh, will take that chance to say otherwise. Uh, Shehbaz Sharif can do something, but as already told, he hasn't got the mandate. He's heading a united government, so we'll have to wait till Pakistan holds fresh elections, say in 7 8 months time, or if the present assembly completes its term, we'll have to wait till then. But there's one more point, a few days back, Chief of Army Staff General Bajwa, he was very clear about having good relations with India, and he was very clear about having peace in the region. So, in that dialogue in Islamabad, it was quite promising, and I think he believes in that. And we'll have to just give Pakistan's existing turmoil a little bit more time, as
No,
it
Mohit Saab, I want to understand. In the past we have been saying that army is very strict. It does not want peace with India, and the politicians and the governments do want that. But now it seems the other way around. The army is in fact giving those feelers that it wants to move forward. But we saw Imran Khan very rigid position, and perhaps Shehbaz Sharif will have no choice but to follow in that footsteps.
you see, if one understands the dynamics of Pakistan's equation between the polity and the establishment, one would know that if the army, and especially if the chief says something, army doesn't say anything as an institution. The chief speaks on behalf of the entire force. So if we understand that dynamics, it is very important to understand that if the chief says something, it means a lot to everyone, and whosoever is in power has to vet. And I don't think any Pakistani politician won't want peace with India. There's no reason for that. If the army wants it, and if the situation is conducive, especially it's not conducive after 2019, if the situation is conducive, I think it's high time for Pakistan and India to go forward. And let's wait for some change in the Indian Kashmir. I won't call it held. If you, I suppose it wouldn't be taken in good spirit, but Indian Kashmir, and let's have political stability in Pakistan. As far as the armed forces are concerned, army, especially armed forces, especially the army, it has that tilt towards peace. It has that knack for peace in the region, and I think we need it because our economic condition doesn't give us much room for any conflict with on our both borders, eastern and western.
Major General Ashok Kumar. Now we've seen probably two elections happening uh, almost at the same time. Elections in J&K by the end of this year, and elections in Pakistan again perhaps by the end of this year. But generally, whenever there are elections in J&K, there is an escalation in violence. Do you think there could be some change this time?
Definitely, if you really see the pattern, though the terrorist activities in varying intensity and in varying forms are still taking place, including the death of certain terrorists, but there is a pattern which indicates reduction in such activities. And if you see the interest of the Pakistan army, if they are really serious as it is appearing, if the terrorists don't find dedicated support for their infiltration and subsequent, arms, ammunition, and otherwise wherewithals, naturally these things will come down. It is likely that during the elections these things are upstaged, but seeing the deployment of army, having detailed intelligence support, and especially the people's coming forward to give information, I for one feel that in coming days the degree of violence will reduce. And once we are able to take forward our development model better for the youth of Jammu and Kashmir, and touch their hearts, which all organs and state stakeholders in the India are trying, I'm sure there will be positive change. I for one am very very optimistic that we will not see the kind of level of violence which we have seen in the past. And in case there is any upsurge, we have the capacity, wherewithals, wills, and methods to checkmate that in a very very effective manner.
Well, of course, there has been a decrease in violence since last couple of years. There has been reduction in stone pelting, in street unrest that we have not seen. Is it just something very permanent? Because we've seen that one section, particularly politicians, have been emphasizing that there has been a disempowerment of people as far as that is concerned after 2019, and elections taking such a long time. There's this delimitation process, and then there will be elections. Do you think it may not help in the long run? What's your sense, Sarral Sharma? Because it seems to be that right now there is some sort of a status quo. Things are not moving forward. There is violence. There are militant attacks and operations that are started by the security forces against militants. But that's it. No forward political movement.
So I think one reason I can see is also because of the COVID situation. We'll have to see the whole delimitation process is not that simple. It takes time for the delimitation process to complete. So that is one factor. And second, we should also look at how Pakistan behaved after August 2019 in the Imran Khan government. So carrying that baggage for Shehbaz Sharif government, it will be difficult to have like sort of like a fundamental change in Indo-Pakistan relationship. One point I would like to make here is that what I can see the way forward, there is just one issue, that is trade relationship. In 2021, India allowed to export to cotton and sugar to Pakistan, but of course, Imran Khan's cabinet rejected that at the last moment. Whether that is going to happen in the coming months, we'll have to see, because the window of opportunity is small. Elections in Pakistan are going to take place next year, unless this coalition government won't be able to survive, or there's like a fresh election, or there are other issues, for example the dissolution of assemblies, and Imran Khan plays as an opposition leader. They'll come up with some sort of strategy where they'll have fresh elections in Pakistan. And why I mentioned about the military establishment, now that DG Ispar is saying that the current chief is changing in November, so what will be the strategy of the new chief? So we'll have to consider all these things. And I think based on that, my assessment is that Indo-Pakistan relationship may not witness like a big change in the next 1 year.
Well, there may not be a big change. Manju said we're seeing that Pakistan, particularly Imran Khan, at the international stage, really being very strident as far as Jammu and Kashmir is concerned, as far as India-Pakistan relations are concerned. We'll see at least some sort of a mellowing down on that, and that could perhaps help to create that atmosphere, some small baby steps towards improving the relationship.
I think even if the rhetoric does get a little more mellowed down, the stability of the government, new government, is still not very certain. So, and all of them agreeing on a particular approach to the relationship with India, to strengthen the relationship with India, is very doubtful, given the diverse the diverse viewpoints of all the coalition members. So I don't see, though it may mellow down, but I don't see a great change in the India-Pakistan relationship taking place right now, or even in the foreseeable future, until a new government comes. And if General Bajwa is not, I mean, he wants to improve relations, but if he is not there beyond November, we can't be sure whether he'll be able to implement his idea. So the government of the day will normally follow what he is saying, but I'm not sure it will happen. And of course, with both sides insisting on these conditions, they insisting that statehood, and whatever has been done in 2019 August be reversed in Article 390 be reversed, 70 be reversed in Jammu and Kashmir, and we are saying you have to stop terrorism first and supporting terrorism. And which I think doesn't, because as we have seen, even it has been a kind of state policy for Pakistan to encourage terrorism in India. And so I don't see it stopping in the immediate future. And so it has come down, but if it continues, I don't see too much, and there's not too much cause for optimism.
Yes, not too much cause for optimism. We may not be sure on that count, but what we would be clearly sure is that internally Pakistan would see a lot of unrest and turmoil. Imran Khan's, all his MPs have resigned from the parliament and has gone to the street. He has been holding big, huge, public rallies. There was just a rally yesterday in Peshawar. So clearly we're seeing a lot of, things happening on the streets of Pakistan. Perhaps that could also be another factor that we have to look keenly when we talk about Indo-Pakistan relationship. Stability in Pakistan would be an important factor, an important determinant as far as the relation between two countries is concerned, and which way it goes here on. Thanks so much to all of our panelists for joining us. That's all we have in today's show. Thanks for watching.
It's great to see you here. Thank you for watching our work. If you haven't subscribed yet, don't forget to click the bell icon and subscribe to Mojo Story and support independent, robust journalism.